Down in the description, we do have a 10% discount code for all Kizers on Amazon. From Mojave Outdoors, 10% discount code is down in the links below. Bang, Neves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is at work, and this is the review on the Kizer Shard. Now, this is a small knife with only a 2 1/4 inch blade, and overall length is about 5 3/8. So not a big knife at all. A couple quick size comparisons. Here is the Spyderco Dragonfly, which is slightly bigger. And then if you're looking, if this is just a little too small, but you want something kind of similar, the Kizer Lieb is another great option. And it is just a little bit bigger, a little more girthier. But another option is the KANSEPT, which is the same designer, same size, basically same everything, but the Shard is better, in my opinion, and I will show later on why and the reasons why it's better. But if you're looking for something in titanium that's small like this, it's slightly bigger, but not by much, the KANSEPT Goblin. And with the Goblin, you can get a full grip because you can get up right close to the blade, and this kind of pokes down a little bit. Now, one more front flipping option is the CJRB Swags knife, which is basically, they're really close to the same length, similar blade shape, you know, just a little bit different. Anyways, so the blade steel is N690. The handle material is beautiful micarta, and we'll get more into the micarta in a minute. Steel liners, steel clip. N690 is a great steel. It's very resistant to corrosion, and it holds a pretty good edge. I would say it's kind of similar to a 14C28N in some ways. I personally like 14C just a little bit more, but it is, you know, they're comparable. VG10, 154CM are also, you know, in the same exact category or league. Now, this thing does have, it is a flat ground blade, and it does have jimping on the spine that goes pretty far up the blade, which helps you get a little bit better grip. Let's talk about cutting really quick, and then we'll talk about sharpening. So it actually cuts pretty decent. It's behind the edge thickness. It does have a range because it gets a little bit from thinner to thicker to thinner, but it's right around 15 thousandths behind the edge. It does go down and up from there, but you know, right around there. And that's a great thickness, you know, for an EDC knife. Now, obviously, utility cutting is going to be its, you know, its main floor, I guess, or, you know, its main thing is going to be utility cuts, and it cuts very, very well. So we'll show some utility cuts. The utility cutting is fantastic on this. You can, even for such a small knife, you can get a good grip on it, which we're going to show in a second, but it just works. It works really well. Nice, fine, acute tip that pierces very well, and you do get a good amount of leverage behind your cuts to pull it through materials. Now, slicing, you know, it's not going to be your major slicer. Can it cut? Of course it can. It can slice just fine, and it has a tiny bit of belly in the blade that kind of adds to it. But, you know, being just a 2 1/4 inch blade, it's not gonna, you don't have a lot of room for cutting. But for a quick cut, for, you know, pull out of your pocket and make a cut, works great. So it is going to be just fine in the cutting department for its size and for what it's for. It's not going to go into competitions for cutting, but it can cut just fine. Now, let's talk about the ergos really quick, because this is going to be, you know, like why, or you know, where it really falls in place of how it works for you. So it is basically a 3-finger knife, but you can kind of cover up this little spot right there since it doesn't have a flipper tab and get all 4 on there. Now your finger's pretty close to the blade, but it is in front of it because you're kind of using that scoop. And because the jimping is so far up the blade, you can really lock in really good. Now, for slicing through stuff, you're going to want to kind of do the, you know, where you curl your fingers around, do the pinch, you know, and slice through things like that. And then obviously utility cuts, you know, get your finger on there and really push down, which you can get a lot of leverage in for such a small knife. It does have, for such a small knife, it's very slim this way and, you know, a good thickness this way. So it still gives you something to purchase too. Now, if you look at this beautiful micarta, it's a gray micarta and it just looks gorgeous. It really looks good. It's aging very well. Now, not very fast. It is kind of more of a denser, you know, semi-polished micarta, but for what it's worth, it's a very good quality micarta, which I like. I'm very happy with this micarta, but you see these little ridges right here? That gives you something to pinch. So when you are in this grip, or when you use, this is the way I mostly like to use, I use my thumb and then my middle finger on the other side, and then use the jimping on top for this finger, and it works really good for little utility cuts. Or, you know, you can just do the regular pinch like that. You know, there's lots of ways to do it, but it works. Now, let's talk about the action, because man, this action is good. The action is so good on this thing. It is a small knife, but for thumb stud action, man, I mean, for a little knife, it's really, really good. And it's got a really cool sound to it. And even if I slow roll it very, very slow, which is also kind of satisfying because it's super smooth, it locks itself right in. You can see how it just sucks itself right into place. The lockup is early, but it is rock solid. I mean, I've tested it, I've squeezed on it, it is rock solid. And like I said, you can just feel it really just pop right in. That lock bar sucks it right in. And the detent strength, it's lighter, but clicky, very appropriate. I wouldn't want it any stronger, any lighter. It's just appropriate. So you can easily get the reverse flick, the thumb flick, and the detent. Nice and clicky. When you unlock it, the detent is nice and early, but you can easily just let it drop. And it's very smooth. Even if I do it from right up here, you can just really see it's super, super smooth. I mean, it's very easy and satisfying. It's, you know, for such a little knife, it's actually satisfying to flick and fidget with. And some of it has to do with the clickiness. But even with my left hand, which I'm kind of handicapped with my thumb, you know, at least for right now and probably for quite some time because of my injury right there. But even though, like, I'm you know, a little, you know, I can't do as much with my left hand thumb, I can still, you know, that's about as far down as I can put my thumb, but I could still easily, you know, thumb flick this and reverse flick it. So that says a lot with my left hand, you know, at least right now with me having some nerve damage. Now the lock bar is easy to get to, which I really like. It's very easy to get to. It is a polished liner, but it still is locked up, like I said. Sometimes you have to worry about polished liners, you know, slipping, but very, very nice. It is running on ceramic bearings and a ceramic detent ball. There is milling on the inside of here, so it does bring down the weight a little bit. Let's talk about the clip, and then we'll talk about sharpening. The clip works pretty good, but there were a couple times where I was wearing thicker jeans and it did catch up on the lip because I did not inset it in the micarta. Now, I just had to adjust it and put it back in, but there were some times where it would catch up. And it still was hanging on tight, so I don't, you know, I'm not worried that it would have fell out of my pocket because there is good amount of tension on the clip. And the lip is pretty decent, so in and out of the pocket was relatively good, but it did catch up a couple times on the little lip of the clip, even though they have flat screws, which I do like. Or it's not flat screws, it's actually from the other side. So on the inside of it is where it's screwed into. So in order to remove the clip, you have to take the knife apart. It's not reversible. So you can see the screws on the inside of the clip right there. And then, so they're not rounded or anything on the, you know, right here. It's not like the screws get in the way of the clip, but the clip itself could have been inset into my card. Then it would work better for in and out of the pocket, but it wasn't bad. It's still a decent clip. It's just, you know, that lip right there, it did tend to hit sometimes with thicker jeans. I know this probably bugs some people. Look, it's on the inside and they're flat, right? They're on the inside and they're flat. And all the companies have trouble putting them on the outside and making them flat. Anyways, T6s, T8 pivot, then the two T6 screws down here. And this might be a knife you'd like a lanyard on, because by throwing a lanyard on it, it'll give you a little more grip. You know, like if you have a lanyard with a bead, you can use the lanyard to kind of hang on to, pull it in and out of your pocket from the lanyard, and this might actually be a great knife for a lanyard. Now let's talk about sharpening really quick. So here is the factory edge. The factory edge was okay, but I could see that the angles were off a little bit from one side to the other, and also, you know, how the grind thickness kind of fluctuated. So I sharpened it on my Work Sharp Field sharpener, and it sharpened up okay. I did have a little bit of trouble, but it was mostly my fault, not the knife itself. So the steel felt just fine on the system. It does have the thumb studs that kind of get in the way, so you do have to hold it at an angle. And this also has a little bit of belly, so it's not going to be like a straight razor where you just go straight across. So I started on the coarse and I finished on the fine diamond, and then I basically just stropped it afterwards. I didn't take it to the ceramic or anything like that, and it did sharpen up, you know, pretty good. I kind of rushed it though, which gave me a little bit of fatigued steel, and so my edge retention wasn't that great, but it was completely my fault. It had nothing to do with the knife itself. It was just me rushing the sharpening. But other than that though, the steel felt fine, and you know, it did sharpen up okay. Just to show it really quick, you see how it does have a slight bit of belly. It's not a perfect straight edge. Like if you look at the other one, if you look at the KANSEPT little Main Street, it's more perfectly straight. Now if you look at this, if you look at the Shard's blade, you'll notice how it has a little bit of belly. Now if you look at the little Main Street, you see how it's a perfectly straight edge. You can see the slight bit of difference there. And so it's just something to note that this one actually has a tiny bit of belly, but you know, it definitely benefits you when cutting and stuff. So there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just showing that that is something you know, you have to note, especially when sharpening. You're not just going to go straight across the stone. You are going to have to get that little bit of belly. Now let's talk about a couple bad things. So one bad thing right off the bat, the grind was a little off from one side to the other. So you see how it's thinner right here, or smaller down here. And then it gets thicker and then back to thinner. Well, it's the same thing on this side, but the right here is actually, it's deeper. I guess the grind is a little deeper right here than it is on the other side. So the edge bevel on both sides are off from one side to the other. Not a huge big deal, but you know, it is a thing. And the choil, the sharpening choil, you know, it's really non-existent, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I do kind of wish that the plunge was just a little bit sharper of a drop, but it's not that big of a deal. So I'm not going to complain about it too much. And, you know, it's just kind of the way the design was. T6s, I'd rather see T8s. And then I'm not a huge fan of the shiny liners. You guys know that probably about me. It cheapens the knife a little bit. I would have rather seen it stone-washed, you know, stone-washed clip. But, you know, that's just an aesthetic thing. It's actually, there's nothing wrong with it. But, you know, this is going to probably show scratches a little bit faster, and, you know, the polished, you know, liner just kind of looks cheap to me. But all in all, man, it doesn't look cheap, the knife. The knife does look expensive. They do have other versions of this in micarta and I think G10. And I think they even have a titanium version. So there's multiple different versions of this. And it's a great little knife. There's really not much bad here. All in all, it's really good. I mean, you're going to have to watch out for the cutting path with the thumb studs, because the thumb studs are in the cutting path, but it's such a small knife that, you know, what can you do, right? I mean, yeah, they could have moved the thumb studs up a little bit, but it's really not that big of a deal. You know, it's a small knife. So I wish the clip was inset. That's not that big of a deal. It works really good, but, you know, I do wish it was it was inset. Now, that's really it for the bad things. I mean, there's really, I mean, the micarta is just so well done on this. It looks good. It's not really the kind of micarta that absorbs moisture like crazy or anything like that, but it's good quality. Now let's talk about this, why this is better than the KANSEPT version, which same designer, they're both Dirk Pinkerton. Both Dirk Pinkerton designs. So there's a couple reasons. One, the liner on this one is so much harder to get to. Now the detent and action is really good on both of them. I would even argue that this one's possibly slightly better for the drop, and the action opening is more satisfying on this one. And since the lock bar is easier to get to, yeah, this one's a little bit better. But that's mostly why it's better. But there's a couple more things. The micarta, far better. This micarta is cheap to me. This is cheap, crappy micarta. I do not like this micarta. So, you know, you can really see when I zoom in here, the difference in quality. And the clip is titanium on this one. This one is steel. So, you know, they both work great. So the clip, either one, I would take either one. This one, you know, it almost seems like this one should be on this one. This one should be on this one, just in looks. But both of them are great clips. They both work just fine. Titanium is more expensive, but, you know, usually spring clips work a little bit better. This one's definitely better in hand than this one, but this one's not bad. I think this one's far better. I think it feels better. I think the quality feels better. I think this one it's better. While finishing this off, I just want to say that this is a very simple design, which I also do like. The stop pin is a perfect size, great size for this. The build quality feels great. Just all in all, everything feels, it feels like good quality, especially for the price. So it's definitely a great buy from Kizer knives. And, you know, it really shows when you really look at like the little fine details, you know, even from the stop pin straight across to the lock bar. It's a nice straight shot. So, you know, it really locks up really strong. Everything's, you know, it feels really good in the hand. Everything's knocked down really nicely. The micarta's done very well. The standoffs, you know, you have two standoffs, so it really adds to the strength of it. The jimping is done incredibly well. There's just a, you know, it's done very well. All right, Dirk Pinkerton designs. I love Dirk Pinkerton designs. He likes to do Wharncliffe sheepfoot designs, and I like that. He has very utility-esque knives. Now, I know he has other designs as well, but I've always liked his designs, from the Fire Ant to the Rogue, which I should have brought out the Fire Ant. Anyways, but he has great designs. And he's done a lot of work with Kizer. Kizer does a great job. So, yeah, I like it. I think it's well done. And if you want a little knife, it's a small little fifth pocket coin pocket knife or a secondary utility knife, this is a great option. There you go. Thanks for watching. Peace.